Hello, yes, and welcome to yet another Wet Spot unboxing video. We got all sorts of cool stuff here and there and everywhere that came in on a beautiful winter day. We'll be taking a look at some of the neat stuff we got in this time. Gonna skew a little bigger than normal, if you can believe it. Let's dig in here, see what we got. Up first, oh, I love these guys. I need to actually get around to keeping the darn things. We'll get there. These are Burmese clouded freshwater archers. Please note I said freshwater in there. These guys obviously come, again, from Burma. They'll get about 6 inches long. They are schoolers, but they're very interesting schoolers in captivity. You definitely want to keep, preferably not do this, but either 1 or at least 6 or more. And the reason I say that is unless you have huge amounts of room, they do like to school, but they will also have some aggression between each other to figure out dominance. It's best to have at least that half dozen mark, if not more. One of our employees here actually has, I believe it's 8 or 9 in a 75 right now. So take heart, you don't need a massive tank to make these guys work. You just want to be sure not to get a pair, because you'll probably end up with one very happy archer and one very sad archer. These guys, if you've ever seen any sort of Nat Geo or any of that Blue Planet stuff featuring an archer fish, would know that these are carnivores. They do spit, although truthfully, we never train them to do it here. It takes a little bit of time in captivity, but it's a very, very neat fish. I'm going to point out one more time that these guys are true freshwater. We promise. We don't sell any of those brackish archers that need to be kept in hard freshwater or brackish to even sometimes saltwater that will show up in the hobby. These guys are totally fine and actually more acidic water, a little south of neutral is best. Okay, next up, let's have something else a little weird going on here. This is a neat one because I haven't really seen these myself. I have, but I haven't. These are Polypterus ansorgii, sometimes called the Guinea Bashir. I always say Bashir, not sure why everyone out here calls them bikers, but anywho, this is a really neat species that's tremendously rare in the trade. The reason why I mentioned I have but haven't seen these is these are tank raised, which is not very common. You don't see that on a lot of Bashir species. And in particular, this one is typically wild caught, and you'll get a big, almost foot-long giant coming through. It's a very neat fish, like most of the other Bashirs that we have featured on this program. These are carnivores. They're not particularly aggressive, so long as nothing is small and tantalizing enough to become a morsel. This one in particular does get some good size to it. There are wild-caught specimens measuring up to 30 inches that have been recorded. However, many captive-raised Bashirs do tend to get a little smaller than the average wild mark, for reasons I'm not sure. It's easy to point out that they're stunted, they're being kept in too small tanks, but I've seen enough in large tanks where there's definitely enough swimming room and they've been well fed enough that I don't think that's all of the answer there. It's just something I keep in mind. So I'd expect these to definitely hit about 18 inches and just slow down completely, but they will probably get a bit bigger from there. Alright, let's see what's next in the box of intrigue. Whoa, these guys are cool. So these are Neolithic Hylus strachii, the Burmese blue tor. Tor is sometimes also referred to as moss ears, especially in parts of their range, like in India. It's a very, very neat fish, and why I say that is, in many ways, it's like a coolie, but not. It is kind of carp-like. It'll hit almost 24 inches in captivity, so although it's a very slow grower, it will get some size, and they do school and they do swim around quite a bit. So of course you'd want to make sure to have them in a fairly large tank. Or, should you have the time and space and money, what you could do is what a lot of folks keeping these are doing, which is keeping them in very large indoor pond setups. This species can get a bit temperate, can tolerate temperatures as low as 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very interesting to me, and they're omnivores. They really will eat darn near everything you throw at them. I also just think they're really pleasing to watch. As they're small, when they're small, they do tend to move around a little bit more zippily. As they're large, they are a bit more graceful, as well as, I know they're looking just silver right now, but as they age and with variety in the diet, since they are omnivores, they'll eat mostly everything, you really get some of these beautiful, like, mirrored blues. I've seen pink hues. I've seen just kind of every iridescence you could ask for. It's a very, very pretty fish, especially if you're patient. Oh man, what's up next in the box? It is yet another large fish. Who could have possibly guessed this? This is a wonderful fish. This is Glucochromis spectabilis. Sorry, those that don't have all the scientific names memorized. Don't really have a common name, or at least not yet. This is a beautiful, large predatory hap off of the Tanzanian coast of Malawi, is where it would naturally occur. These guys will get up to 11 inches in length, and they are pretty fast. In the wild, they would hunt down smaller fish. They're carnivores, so they're pretty speedy. You definitely want to make sure that you have the tank size for, at least one of these guys, because a large colored up male is this beautiful dark blue with a little bits of yellow on it. Wonderful fish, just maybe not the best fit long term for smaller tanks or with smaller mbuna. They can be a bit feisty. I have seen these in colored up hap and peacock tanks. I have seen them mute some of the color on less boisterous species, so you want to be careful with placement. But if you have the space for it and the setup for it, one of these guys zipping around being dominant is absolutely stunning. There's a lot of other YouTube videos I've seen with males doing breeding dances and courtship that are just absolutely mind-blowing to see. Really like this fish. Alright, let's see what else is in here. And for something completely different, tank-raised Ruminos tetras. What an industry standard. Beautiful fish. These guys have actually recently been redescribed. They were Hemigrammus blairi. They're now being considered Peditella. That was a very recent revision, so that will probably be changing up here on a lot of lists soon. These guys are going to be native to Colombia and Brazil in the wild, although as I mentioned, these guys are tank-raised. That TR at the top of the bag right next to the name means. They'll get about 2 inches long. They're omnivores with a carnivory lean like some other tetras. However, they do have pretty small mouths, so you don't want to feed them anything too large or anything just too big for them to suck down, because they definitely don't hunt and peck around. If you overfeed them with flake, they're going to leave it on the ground. They're not good cleaner uppers. However, they are just wonderful fish. Very tight shoulders in the aquarium. Very tolerant of, so long as the water's acidic, a decently wide range of parameters, although you always want to keep them clean. If the water chemistry takes a dip, they'll lose that red nose. They're a good indicator for that, but just a wonderful little fish. Other thing I do want to point out is you're seeing them now fully acclimated to the tank, just showing that beautiful black and white contrast and that red face after them being kind of stressed out and pale and silver in the bag. It really does make a difference. Let's see what's next. Oh, sweet. This is one of my absolute favorite tetras, and it's hard to pick favorites when you like nearly everything, but this is very near and dear to my heart. This is Hyphesibrycon margite. The bleeding blue tetra was used to be described as, I believe, like Hyphesibrycon SP red and blue or something at some point. These guys come from Peru. They're unfortunately not very often seen. They'll get about 2 inches long, and like a lot of tetras, they're, again, tiny little omnivores. They're very peaceful and very easy. A lot of the time, somewhat more expensive tetras, unfortunately, don't always get to go home in a setup I think would be really cool because they're a little spendy or people don't know what they do. I took these home on a whim about a year or so ago and just love these guys. Absolute wonderful fish, great colors, especially when they're in breeding condition, and when they're not, you get this really pleasant bluish purple with that red on the fins. They're also total sweethearts. Haven't had any issues with them in my big community tank with my different species of tetras, and they're with a lot of other community fish. Just very nice, very graceful, very slow moving, just nice little pops of color. We're seeing a lot of it now. It's just going to come out more as they grow into it. Alright, what's next? After a minute, it's Suellia linealata, the reticulated hillstream loach. Wonderful loach, native to Vietnam, although there's records of it coming from other places. Does get about 2 inches, maybe 2 1/4 in captivity. They do get some size to them, although they're awfully cute and small right now. They are omnivores. I have seen other people on YouTube, other people saying these are great algae eaters. I have kept these, and in my experience, they're okay, I guess. Yes, they do eat algae. They're also trying to eat these small organisms in there, little microinvertebrates, sometimes called aufwuchs in some settings, in that algae. So it's not they're loving all that algae, it's that they're trying to get the full deal. There's just inverts living in there as well. With that said, they are a beautiful hillstream loach. They are very bold compared to a lot of other hillstream loaches I've kept, and they have been captive bred, so there's even kind of that reward. I had a very good friend back in Indiana that actually gave me some babies for me to watch over because he ran out of space. Shout out to Jim, if you ever watch this, miss you. Anywho, these guys don't have to be kept in a hillstream environment like I'm currently keeping my hillstreams at home. However, you do need to make sure the water is stringently clean, no ammonia, no nitrite, very little nitrates, as well as full of oxygen, or you will unfortunately burn these cute little guys out. They do come from slightly cooler environments with a lot of oxygen. We'll see who's next in the box. Keep up our Southeast Asian trend. These are a very nice little Danio that I'm not tremendously familiar with. These are Danio ascalappi, sometimes called the Panther Danio. These are also going to be from Burma. This is a nice little Danio. I'm very partial to Danios, especially some of these little buggers that aren't necessarily from fast-flowing environments, that are a bit more laid back. These are one of the smaller species in the genus, and they'll probably be moved out of Danio at some point, according to some experts. We'll see on that one. Anyway, they'll get a little over an inch long. They are going to be micro-predators. In the wild, they would eat, insects that have fallen into the water, small crustaceans. They'll eat about anything you throw at them here in captivity. But I just really like how peaceful they are and how nicely they school. It's fast, but it's not too fast. They'd be a wonderful little nano-tank inhabitant if you don't have a ton of space. They also, which unfortunately you have to zoom in a little bit to see, have this really pleasing kind of snakeskin pattern with some nice yellows and greens to it on top of that kind of pinkish base color. It's a wonderful little Danio. Alright, this box is getting a little light, so let's see what all we got in here remaining. Ooh, this is a good little one. These are silver coolie loaches, Pangeo anguilaris. It's a wonderful loach that unfortunately isn't seen all that often in the hobby, despite them having a pretty wide range in nature. I believe Thailand and Borneo are on there. They do get, like a lot of coolie loach species, a little over 4 inches in length maximum, but you can see how terribly spaghetti thin they are. Not in a bad way, they're not starving, I promise. That's just naturally how they occur. They're very worm-like, for lack of a better descriptor. Like a lot of coolie loaches, these guys are micro-predators. They just kind of burrow through the substrate looking for small things to eat, and I will say that anecdotally, these do seem to be a little bit more shy than other coolie loaches, and a bit more prone to physically burrowing, which is very interesting. My understanding is that in nature, they occur in kind of like leaf piles and soft sands they can really shove themselves into. And of course, like most coolies, they like to school. That's why these guys are all out and swimming around. They're very happy that there's at least 36 of them in there right now, but definitely a really cool fish for like a loach fanatic to hone in on. Okay, let's see what we got left. Last bag in the box. Hard to have an unboxing video without a pleco. This is a particularly nice one of my favorites, one of the first quote-unquote fancy plecos I kept. This is laporocanticus triactis, sometimes also called L91, sometimes also called the 3-beacon pleco because it has nice red highlights on the tail as well as in the dorsal. This is a wonderful pleco. I really like these guys a lot. I haven't had any issues with keeping them. They're a very good beginner pleco in my opinion. When I was younger and maybe not as good of an aquarist as I am now, I maybe didn't quite hit all those notes in terms of caring for it, and it still chugged along for me, so I'd say it's a gold seal of approval. So you can see these guys right now are kind of grayish with speckling. They will darken out, especially as they settle in, and as they grow. They will very slowly hit about 10 inches long in captivity. Like most plecos, they like to be kept warm. You do want to have a bit more flow or a bit more oxygenation in the tank would be lovely. But where these guys really shine, and I think where they make it easier, is they're not only very hardy, but also a carnivore. These guys in the wild would feed a lot of worms or other meaty bits, so they're very easy to feed. All of these fish that you did see are currently available as of time of posting, both here in the store as well as through online sales. So if you saw something you can't live without, be free to stop in or shoot us an email and we'll be happy to add the next denizens to your aquarium.